You know his name. You've probably sung one of his songs, maybe even danced to it at a middle school party. Aaron Carter, blonde, baby-faced, the younger brother of a Backstreet Boy. At one point, the kid was everywhere MTV Nickelodeon sold-out tours before he hit puberty. The American dream repackaged in glitter and bubblegum pop. But if you type his name into Google today, you won't see concert clips or smiling red carpet photos. You'll see something else. You'll see the words "found dead" in a bathtub at age 34. And just beneath that, a thread of disturbing details that don't quite fit. A flurry of frantic calls, cryptic social media posts, a wellness check that came too late, and a locked bathroom door that no one could open until it was already too late. The headlines tried to wrap it up with a ribbon. Troubled star dies of overdose, case closed right. But here's the thing. If you dig just a little deeper, if you look past the glossy headlines and the tabloid noise, you'll find something else, something darker, something unfinished. What really happened to Aaron Carter that night? And why even now does something about it still feel wrong? Tonight, we're pulling the curtain back on a story you think you know. But by the end of this video, you might be asking questions no one has dared to answer, because fame is a performance, and sometimes the final act is the quietest one of all. Aaron Carter was born into fame, or perhaps more accurately into the machinery that manufactures it. Born December 7th, 1987 in Tampa, Florida, Aaron was the fourth of 5 siblings in the Carter household. Music ran thick through their veins. His older brother Nick was already gaining traction as a member of the Backstreet Boys, and the world of entertainment opened its doors just a little wider for Aaron. At the tender age of 7, Aaron began performing. Not in school talent shows, but on real stages opening for the Backstreet Boys in Berlin. He was barely old enough to tie his shoes yet, already learning how to command a crowd of thousands. And the world responded loudly. His debut album dropped when he was just 9. It went platinum in several countries. Aaron's Party Come Get It followed shortly after, and that sealed it. He was no longer just Nick Carter's little brother. He was Aaron's solo artist teen idol, and the object of millions of pre-teen affections. But while the cameras flashed and the money poured in, something was shifting underneath. Fame, especially when it arrives early, doesn't just elevate, it transforms. The ordinary rules of childhood no longer apply. There are no do-overs, no awkward phases, no safe spaces. Every mistake is televised, every insecurity is magnified. And behind the scenes, the Carter family was unraveling. There were allegations of abuse, financial struggles, a revolving door of managers' lawsuits and manipulation. Aaron was constantly on the road, pulled from school, surrounded by adults with agendas. He grew up in green rooms, backseats of limousines and hotel hallways, always performing, even when the music stopped. As he got older, the cracks in the image began to show. He appeared on Dancing with the Stars, tried to rebrand with new music, even ventured into acting. But something never clicked the same way it did when he was a boy in baggy jeans, rapping about how I beat Shaq. The spotlight dimmed, and in its fading glow, Aaron struggled to find himself. In interviews, he spoke openly about anxiety, about being broke, about his strained relationship with his family, and about something darker: drug use, mental health diagnoses, and the gnawing sense that he had been used up and cast aside. By the time he reached his 30s, Aaron Carter was no longer a celebrity in the traditional sense. He was a cautionary tale, a trending hashtag, a tabloid curiosity. But even then, he never stopped trying to be seen. In 2019, he went live on Instagram and cried on camera. In 2020, he joined OnlyFans and began selling content. In 2021, he signed on for celebrity boxing matches. It was as if he was grasping at any rope thrown to him, trying to climb out of the chasm of obscurity, each move more desperate than the last. Each smile thinner, each video shakier. And yet in the days leading up to his death, something in Aaron's world became quieter. The social media posts slowed. The boxing matches stopped. The music, always a part of him, was replaced with long, rambling live streams, often filmed in the small, dimly lit house he had retreated to in Lancaster, California. It was here, far from the flashing lights and screaming fans, that Aaron Carter spent his final weeks. Alone, but never really off stage, because the internet is always watching. On the morning of November 5th, 2022, someone finally looked away. Aaron's housekeeper found him unresponsive in the bathtub. The details after that are grim. The police arrived, the body was removed, an autopsy was performed. The reports would later say accidental drowning, influenced by difluoroethane and alprazolam keyboard clacks that translate in human terms to a fatal mix of compressed air and Xanax. But some things didn't add up. The timing, the silence, the messages left unanswered. And then there was the phone call. The final one, the one no one can fully explain. And that's where our story really begins. In the weeks leading up to Aaron Carter's death, something changed quietly, almost imperceptibly but deeply. For a man whose life had become a live feed of emotional unraveling, the silence was unnerving. It started with the missed appearances. Aaron was scheduled to attend rehab, again. He'd reportedly agreed to it as part of an ongoing custody battle over his son, Prince. But then he didn't show up. No explanations, just a vanishing act. Then came the online withdrawal. Aaron was no stranger to chaos on Instagram Live. Fans, if they could still be called that, tuned in regularly to watch the meltdowns. Rambling rants, paranoid tangents, long stretches of him just staring into the camera with bloodshot eyes. But toward the end of October 2022, the streams became subdued. No more drama. No more breakdowns. Just Aaron often sitting in the same room, lights dim, talking softly to the void, sometimes not talking at all. To the casual observer, this looked like progress, calm, stability. But to those who had followed his descent in real time, the quiet felt eerie, as if the storm had passed, but only because there was nothing left to destroy. Then there was the dog. His fans noticed it first. His beloved German Shepherd was barking frantically during one live stream, pacing, agitated. Viewers in the comments were alarmed. Something felt off. Aaron brushed it off, just a dog being a dog. But animals sense things, sometimes long before humans do. And then came Halloween. No costume, no party, just a single post. A promotional clip for new music that never dropped. No caption, no context. Just a fading echo of the boy who once filled arenas. Then on November 4th, the day before he died, Aaron picked up the phone. He called his former fiancée, Melanie Martin. Their relationship had been a whirlwind of on and off chaos, restraining orders, public fights, and the kind of dysfunction tabloids thrive on. But that night his voice was calm, too calm. He told her he was tired, not sleepy tired. Tired of everything. The noise, the judgment, the battle to prove he was okay when he clearly wasn't. Then came a sentence that still lingers like a shadow. If I die, I want you to know I loved you. And just like that, the call ended. Not with a bang, not with tears, just a click. A silence that echoed far louder than anything he'd ever screamed on social media. Melanie tried calling back, no answer. She texted, no reply. It wouldn't be until the next morning that someone finally checked on him. By then, the house was silent. The dog was still barking. The bathroom door was closed, and Aaron was gone. The police would later confirm there was no suicide note, no signs of forced entry, no immediate foul play. But the digital footprint he left behind told a different story. Deleted tweets, messages that hinted at paranoia, posts that seemed to foreshadow something darker, something coming. One fan screen-captured a now-vanished Instagram story where Aaron claimed people were after him. Another noted a tweet from just days earlier where he wrote, "You don't know what it's like to be me." It read like a cry for help disguised as defiance. Or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, the pieces didn't quite fit. And then there were the whispers, rumors about the last people who spoke to him, cryptic voicemails, and a mysterious visitor who may have stopped by the night before he died. No name, no confirmed identity, just an unverified report. But that's the thing with tragedy. It attracts shadows. Everyone wants a theory. Everyone wants a villain. But sometimes the most terrifying explanation is the one that never arrives. By the time the coroner's report was released, months had passed. Accidental drowning under the influence. That was it. A full stop at the end of a story that had always read like a warning. But what if it wasn't accidental? What if that final phone call wasn't a coincidence, but a breadcrumb? And what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along? Aaron Carter didn't just fade away, he unraveled. And if you follow the threads back far enough, you'll see this wasn't just a tragic ending. It was a countdown, ticking quietly, waiting for someone to listen. The morning Aaron Carter's body was discovered, a strange stillness settled over the town of Lancaster, California. The street where he lived, modest, fenced eerily quiet, was suddenly swarmed with sirens, camera crews, and the flashing lights of reality crashing down. The initial police response was clinical. Entry was gained. The scene documented. The bathtub filled with green-tinted water from aerosol residue. Prescription bottles lined the counter. Compressed air canisters, known as huffing agents, scattered across the floor. But what investigators found wasn't just a body. It was a maze. A home that felt less like a sanctuary and more like a shrine to isolation. Blank walls, half-eaten food, baby toys from a child who no longer lived there, an unplayed piano in the corner, and a camera, always a camera, still set up on a tripod facing a chair that sat empty. The autopsy wouldn't arrive for months, but the questions began immediately. How long had he been dead before he was found? Who was the last person to speak to him? What happened between the phone call and the silence? One officer described the scene as chaotic, but strangely staged. a phrase that would raise eyebrows among those who believed Aaron's death wasn't an accident at all. His team, what was left of it, went quiet. His family issued statements that were at once heartfelt and defensive. Nick Carter, his older brother, took to Instagram posting, "Even though my brother and I had a complicated relationship, my love for him has never ever faded." Fans weren't satisfied. They wanted answers. Some claimed Aaron had been trying to get clean, that he'd expressed fear about people watching him, that he believed he was in danger. And then there was the rehab mystery. Aaron had been urged to re-enter treatment. He'd said he was willing, but the intake never happened. According to multiple sources, he missed his scheduled entry date without explanation. Why? Some say he was lured into a false sense of control, that he believed he could do it on his own. Others say he was scared. Of who or what, that remains unclear. Digital forensics became the next battleground. Investigators combed through his texts, emails, DMs. They traced the phone call to Melanie. They found other messages too, one sent to a friend that read, "I feel like I'm not going to make it to December." The tone was bleak, the words heavy, but the response, a shrug, a heart emoji. Because when you live your pain publicly for so long, even the red flags start to look like scenery. The investigators were limited. There were no signs of external trauma, no obvious foul play, and without a clear cause of death at the scene, their hands were tied. But others kept digging. Independent sleuths online began piecing together timelines. They cross-referenced Instagram lives with eyewitness accounts. They dissected video clips frame by frame, looking for inconsistencies. In one clip, Aaron speaks softly into the camera. "They don't want me talking, but I have to." Who was they? The clip ends abruptly. The live stream was deleted hours later. Then came the story of a man seen entering Aaron's home 2 nights before his death. Neighbors reported a car, unfamiliar, unmarked, parked outside at 2 a.m. One claimed to hear a heated conversation. Another swore they saw someone leave the house with a duffel bag. The police reviewed surveillance footage from nearby homes. Nothing concrete, just shadows moving in the dark. Still, theories spread like wildfire. A deal gone wrong, a blackmail threat, a fatal mix-up. All while Aaron's personal life remained in the spotlight. Custody disputes, accusations from exes, a family fractured by years of dysfunction, and underneath it all, the gnawing sense that no one really knew who Aaron Carter was anymore. Not the pop star, not the addict, not the man. Just fragments of a public life too loud to hide and too broken to fix. As the weeks passed, interest faded. Headlines moved on. But for those who followed the case closely, the trail was still warm. There were still dots waiting to be connected. One investigator put it simply, "Something about this doesn't sit right. And until we know what happened in those final 12 hours, we don't know anything at all. And maybe we never will." But some people can't stop looking. Because somewhere in that house, in those last phone calls, in that chilling Instagram story, the truth is still waiting to be found. In any death, especially one that's sudden and strange, the details begin to blur. Memories warp, timelines twist, and what's left behind is often a ghost trail, a faint path of facts, half-truths, and silence. That's what Aaron Carter's case became, a trail that vanished almost as quickly as it began. The initial buzz faded fast. Within a week of Aaron's death, the media cycle had moved on. The headlines were replaced with news, celebrity gossip, political drama, and trending scandals. His name, once plastered across every entertainment site, was now buried beneath clickbait and tabloid dust. But to those still watching closely, something didn't make sense. The coroner's report wasn't released for months, and when it finally came, it read like a shrug: death by drowning. Secondary causes, effects of alprazolam and difluoroethane. In other words, Xanax and huffing spray cans, an accidental overdose. Case closed. But what about the locked bathroom door? What about the neighbor who heard arguing the night before? What about the strange man with the duffel bag? None of that was addressed, not officially. And over time, the trail began to grow cold. Melanie Martin, his ex-fiancée, stopped responding to media requests. She'd said her piece that Aaron had been afraid that he'd said goodbye too clearly for it to be a coincidence, but she too had been through years of trauma, years of headlines. She disappeared from the conversation. Aaron's family, already fractured, offered no united front. His mother, in a heartbreaking twist, later released photos from the death scene to the press, hoping she claimed to push for a deeper investigation. But instead of opening doors, it sparked backlash. People questioned her motives. Was she seeking justice or attention? The noise made the signal harder to hear. Then there were the online detectives, Reddit sleuths, YouTube theorists, self-appointed truth seekers trying to untangle the mess. Some proposed elaborate conspiracies, a revenge killing, an industry cover-up, even gang involvement. But their evidence was always circumstantial, built on shadows and hearsay. And still, the facts remained frustratingly sparse. Aaron had been alone. His final phone call had been personal, not professional. The security cameras in his house turned off. His phone unlocked but wiped clean of recent messages. And the bathtub where he died drained by the time police arrived. There were rumors that his body showed signs of trauma, but the autopsy said no. There were whispers that someone else had been in the house, but no DNA was found. The case grew colder with every passing week. Witnesses went silent. Friends refused to speak on the record. Even his record label offered only a single sentence of condolence before moving on. And Aaron's music. It didn't chart again. No viral resurgence, no tribute tour. Just absence. It was as though the world wanted to forget him as quickly as it had once loved him. But for those who couldn't let go, who still watched his old live streams, still read, every thread still played his songs late at night looking for some hidden message in the lyrics, there was only one conclusion. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not for a boy who'd once sold out arenas. Not for a man who had finally said, "I'm tired." There had to be more. But every clue was fading. The surveillance footage deleted after 30 days. The text messages erased. Even the green water in the bathtub, a key sign of inhalant overdose, was dismissed as expected. Expected? That word hung heavy in the air, didn't it? As if tragedy had been Aaron's destiny all along. As if no one even tried to stop it. And maybe that's the most chilling part of all, because sometimes it's not a conspiracy. Sometimes it's neglect. Sometimes the trail doesn't vanish, it's just ignored. Deliberately, quietly, systematically. Because fame is a fragile thing. And forgotten fame even more so. Aaron Carter died alone in a locked room with a phone beside him. And no one really knows what he was trying to say, or who he was hoping would listen. Weeks passed, then months. The buzz died, but the silence left behind grew louder. And then something surfaced. It was subtle, small. But in a case so saturated with shadows, even the faintest flicker of new light was worth chasing. It began with a podcast. A true crime podcaster known for revisiting cold celebrity cases received an anonymous tip. The source claimed to have access to a voicemail, one allegedly sent by Aaron less than 48 hours before his death. The podcast host, skeptical but intrigued, followed up. The audio file was real and chilling. It wasn't long, barely 20 seconds, but Aaron's voice was unmistakable. Breathy, panicked, slurred. They think I don't know what they're doing, but I see it. I see everything. If something happens to me, don't believe the story. Then a click. No recipient listed, no timestamp metadata, but audio analysis confirmed it had not been edited. And the background noise, faint sounds of running water and muffled music matched the layout and echo profile of Aaron's Lancaster home. The file spread fast in the underground web of digital sleuths. Some said it was proof of foul play. Others believed it was a cry for help, a final descent into paranoia. But a former friend, someone who had toured with Aaron years earlier, stepped forward anonymously. He confirmed something curious, that Aaron had become obsessed in recent months with the idea that he was being recorded, that his devices were bugged. He'd unplug his router, cover his webcams, turn his phone off and on 10 times a day, the source claimed. But the weird thing was, he also said he was recording himself, just in case. If true, where were those recordings? The podcast dug deeper. It turned out Aaron had installed security cameras in every room of his home, including the bathroom. But the footage from those days had been wiped, except one file. A backup had been uploaded accidentally or deliberately to a cloud folder tied to his YouTube channel. It was unlisted. It had no title. Just a string of numbers 110422_21_17pm.move. The footage was grainy, static heavy, but there for a moment was Aaron. He looked tired, but not high. He sat on the edge of his bathtub staring into the lens, and he whispered something. "You don't get to decide how my story ends." Then he reached for something out of frame. The camera cut off. That video, just 11 seconds long, became the match that reignited everything. Blogs resurfaced the timeline. Fans posted side-by-side comparisons of his final days. A subreddit thread exploded with speculation. What was he reaching for? A journal, a weapon, a phone. One user zoomed into the footage, claimed they saw another figure reflected faintly in the bathroom mirror, partially obscured, wearing dark clothing. Police were contacted. The file was reviewed. The reflection was inconclusive. Could be a shadow, could be a person. But the police couldn't investigate further, because the death had already been ruled accidental. Case closed. Unless new evidence surfaced, there was nothing more they could do. Still, for many, this was the moment everything shifted. Aaron hadn't just faded into obscurity. He had tried, however imperfectly, however erratically, to leave behind a record, a breadcrumb trail, a whispered warning, and now those whispers were growing louder. Journalists began revisiting the story. A Rolling Stone freelancer published a feature titled "The Boy Who Wouldn't Disappear." It laid out everything: the voicemail, the video, the strange call to Melanie, The deleted texts, the duffel bag rumor. Suddenly, Aaron's name trended again, not as a punchline, but as a question. Who was watching him? And why did no one listen? The spark had been lit, and though it might not be enough to reopen the case, it was enough to make the world pause. And remember, that fame is fragile. That mental illness doesn't make you unreliable, and that sometimes the most important evidence isn't a weapon or a fingerprint, but a whisper left behind in the dark, hoping someone, anyone, is listening. Just when the story seemed to settle back into the shadows, a twist emerged, one that no one expected. It wasn't discovered by police, not by journalists, not even by true crime podcasters. It was found by a fan, a woman named Rachel, a quiet voice in the sea of online theorists. She wasn't an influencer. She didn't have a large following, but she had something else: patience. She had spent months archiving every Instagram live Aaron had ever recorded. She catalogued them, time-stamped them, even color-coded them based on tone, calm, erratic, paranoid, hopeful. And in one stream, buried deep in a video with fewer than 2,000 views, she found something that would change the entire narrative. It was from 2 weeks before Aaron's death. The lighting was poor. Aaron sat in his garage, pacing. He was wearing a hoodie, hunched over, whispering into the camera like he didn't want someone in the house to hear him. He said a name. Clear, repeated, almost like a mantra. "It's Morgan. Morgan's the one. I can't prove it, but it's him." Rachel froze the frame, rewound, played it again. It was unmistakable. Morgan. She posted it in a Reddit thread. Within hours, the community went into overdrive. Who was Morgan? It didn't take long to find him. Morgan Knight, a former manager of Aaron's short-lived 2021 comeback tour. A man who'd been with him during one of his lowest points. Someone Aaron had praised, then turned on, publicly. In a tweet from early 2022, Aaron wrote, "You're gonna regret what you did to me, Morgan. I keep receipts." The tweet was deleted, but the internet never forgets. Digging deeper, people found text screenshots now archived where Aaron claimed Morgan had stolen from him, recorded him without permission, and threatened to expose him. There had even been a police report filed, though no charges were brought. Most dismissed it at the time as another outburst from a struggling artist in freefall. But in light of his death, the context shifted. Rachel wasn't done. She found something else. An Instagram DM from Morgan's account to a small music blogger dated just days before Aaron's death. It read, "He's not going to make it past November. Just watch." That was the message. Short, cold, ominous. The blogger, unnerved, never published it. But now, seeing Aaron's final days unfold, they forwarded it to a journalist. And that journalist made it public. Morgan responded quickly. He denied everything, claimed the message was fake, that he had no contact with Aaron for over a year, that he loved him and wished him peace. But the damage was done. People began asking harder questions. Where was Morgan the week Aaron died? Why hadn't the voicemail mentioned him by name, but the live stream did? And perhaps most pressing, what were the receipts Aaron claimed to have? A source close to Aaron, again anonymous, claimed there were files, videos, contracts, threats, saved in an encrypted folder on his laptop. But when police seized the device, it was blank. Factory reset. No files, no browser history, no user data. The last login was 2 days before his death. Someone had wiped it clean. The question is who? Aaron hadn't left the house. He had no tech assistant, no scheduled updates. And yet the computer was scrubbed as thoroughly as if someone had tried to erase a trail, a digital vanishing act. The twist, it seemed, wasn't in what Aaron said. It was in what someone else had done. Suddenly his paranoia didn't seem so paranoid. His fear justified. His final live streams, once dismissed as incoherent ramblings, were rewatched with new ears, new eyes. What if he had known something? What if someone was watching? The case officially remained closed, but for those watching from the edges, the twist was clear. This wasn't just a slow-motion tragedy. It was a warning. A final puzzle Aaron tried to leave behind. But the pieces didn't just go missing on their own. Long before the live streams, the breakdowns and the whispered accusations, Aaron Carter had mastered the art of performance. He had to. He was a child star, a brand, a paycheck. From age 7, he was taught to smile through exhaustion, to charm through pain, to keep the chaos behind the curtain. That mask became a second skin until one day he couldn't take it off anymore. The world knew Aaron Carter, the performer. But who was Aaron Carter, the man? Behind the glittering album covers and late-night meltdowns lived a person shaped by dysfunction, betrayal, and deep emotional injury. He once said in an interview, "I was never allowed to be a kid. I was just a product." He wasn't being dramatic, he was being honest. Aaron's earliest memories weren't of playgrounds or birthday parties, but of sound checks, photo shoots, and backstage anxiety. His parents weren't just caregivers, they were managers, negotiators, and sometimes adversaries. Lawsuits over money. Sibling rivalry played out in public. Allegations of abuse, restraining orders, reconciliations, more restraining orders. Family wasn't a refuge, it was a battlefield. Then there was his mind. Aaron spoke openly about being diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, acute anxiety, and multiple personality disorder. The admissions were raw, vulnerable, and often weaponized against him. Anytime he reached out for help, he was mocked. Anytime he cried in public, it became a meme. Even his most honest confessions, like fears of being alone, of being forgotten, were treated like punchlines. No one wants to hear the boy band heartthrob talk about trauma. But Aaron tried anyway. Again and again and again, his music evolved into therapy. His lyrics darkened, his melodies twisted. The bubblegum was gone, replaced with something jagged, raw, almost hard to listen to. Because truth is rarely pretty. And for Aaron, the truth was, this fame didn't save him. It swallowed him. But even as he spiraled, he never stopped searching for love. Not romance, though he tried. Engaged, split, reconciled, rejected. But something deeper, a sense of safety, a place where he didn't have to perform. He thought it might be fatherhood. When his son Prince was born, Aaron seemed to stabilize for a moment. He posted pictures, promised sobriety, spoke of new beginnings. But demons don't disappear just because you're holding a baby. His custody battle unraveled him. The fear of losing the only thing that gave him hope sent him back into the storm of substances, erratic behavior, desperate public pleas. In one video, he holds a photo of Prince and says, "I just want to be a good dad, but they won't let me." He cries. The camera lingers, then fades to black. That was Aaron, always on the edge of vulnerability and self-destruction. A man trying to be seen while also trying to disappear. And here's the thing that hurts the most. He warned us, in interviews, in lyrics, in shaky live streams at 2 a.m. He told the world he was scared, that people were watching him, that he felt in danger. We didn't listen, because the mask he wore of the crazy former pop star was easier to believe than the complicated, hurting person underneath. The meltdowns got views. The cries for help got ignored. But if we really look, if we really go back and listen, what we'll find isn't a mystery. It's a man who knew the end was coming and still somehow believed he could outrun it. Until the very last day, Aaron was making music, planning appearances, talking about the future. It wasn't all doom and dread. There was a part of him that still believed, maybe foolishly, that redemption was possible, that he could pull off one last comeback. But in the end, it wasn't a career that failed. It was a system, one that chews up child stars and spits out headlines. That rewards vulnerability with ridicule. That calls addiction a joke until it becomes a eulogy. Aaron Carter didn't wear a mask in the final days. He tore it off. What we saw underneath wasn't pretty, but it was real. A man, a father, a broken soul trying to hold on to something, anything, before the darkness closed in. And whether you believe he died by accident, by design, or by neglect, one thing is clear. He didn't go quietly. He left behind questions, hints, whispers. A final act written not in lyrics or lights, but in silence. And that silence still echoes. We like our endings neat. We want closure, a name, a reason, a sentence that tells us this is how it happened, this is why. But with Aaron Carter, there is no neat ending. Only fragments, a bathtub, a voicemail, a frightened voice on Instagram Live, a wiped laptop, a child left behind, and a world that watched, then turned away. We can try to categorize it, another overdose, another fallen star. But that's not the truth. The truth is more complicated. It's messier. And maybe that's what makes it so haunting. Because if Aaron Carter, with all his fame, all his fans, all his resources, couldn't find a way out of the darkness, what chance does anyone have? That's the question that lingers. Did he know the end was coming? Was he calling for help? Or had he already accepted that no one was really listening? In the end, he didn't die surrounded by bodyguards or paparazzi. He died the way so many do, quietly, alone, lost in a system that doesn't know how to help broken people once the spotlight fades. And maybe that's the real crime here. Not a murder in the legal sense, but a slow public unraveling that everyone saw and no one stopped. We'll never know what Aaron meant to say in those final moments. We'll never know who he was really afraid of, or if he was just afraid of himself. But we can choose to listen now, to hear what he tried to tell us, before the water rose, before the line went dead, before the lights went out. Thank you for staying with us through Aaron Carter's story. If this video moved you, or made you think twice about the quiet struggles people face behind closed doors, please consider subscribing to our channel. We tell these stories not for shock, but to remember, to ask questions others are afraid to ask. There are more stories like this, stories that deserve to be heard. Click the bell so you don't miss what comes next. And if someone you know is struggling, don't wait. Check in, reach out, listen. Sometimes that's all it takes. We'll see you in the next one.